I was almost through the material in
Mhm.
mid-June when I saw a YouTube ad for super fast. And once I took that free training session, I inputted those practices the next week. And all of a sudden it said I had like a week and a half left of material to get through, and I got through it in 2 days. It's like, holy
Yeah.
cow, that where has this been?
Yeah.
Mhm. Welcome to another episode of the CPA Exam Experience podcast from Superfast CPA. I'm Logan, and in today's video, you're going to hear Nate and I talk to Brittany. So Brittany's story starts out similar to a lot of people's stories. She had been in accounting for about 5 years, and she was really close to finishing her master's. So she decided to go back for that to become a CPA and also to get the bonus for becoming a CPA at her firm. And soon after graduating with her master's, she started studying for the CPA exam. However, as she was getting into studying with her review course, they were saying that she wasn't going to be ready for the exam for almost 4 months, even though she was studying 3 hours every weekday and studying 6 hours on the weekends. She felt like she was putting in a ton of time, and they were still saying that she wasn't going to be ready for almost 4 months. She realized that she was doing okay, but she was forgetting a lot of the stuff that she had studied 1 or 2 months ago, and she was starting to get worried. One day, she saw an ad for Superfast CPA on YouTube, and she watched the free webinar training, and immediately started implementing the Superfast CPA strategies. And once she did that, her review course said she still had about 1 or 2 weeks of material left. She finished it in 2 days. And from there, she completely crushed all of the exams. She passed all of them first try in about a 4 or 5 month period once she started implementing the Superfast CPA strategies. And she was able to do this with a family, with a job, and in the evenings, she was still even able to play video games with her husband, which is a favorite hobby of hers. This interview is a great example of how important it is to be effective and efficient with your studying. She went from studying 3 hours in the evenings to studying 2 hours in the mornings and working through the exams very quickly and doing very well on them. I think you're going to like this interview. And before we jump into the interview, I just want to give one more reminder about our Superfast CPA training webinar on superfastcpa.com. It is only 1 hour long. It is free, and we will teach you how to be effective and efficient, just like Brittany was, so that you can pass your exams more quickly, more effectively, more efficiently, and not waste months or years of your time. The link will be in the description of this podcast episode or in the YouTube video, so make sure you check that out. And with all that said, let's dive straight into the interview with Brittany.
And are you all done? Like, where are you at with the exams?
I'm completely done. Licensed CPA now.
Awesome.
So I did just search your email while we were, just chatting, and you had only purchased like 6, well, now it's been 8 months, but you purchased your initial purchase was like back in June, which is to be all done. So were you just starting back in June? From June till now is when you obviously passed all 4, or had you had some done before
Yeah,
that?
I didn't have any tests done before that. I started studying in April and found you in June.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, we'll get into all that. So, going back to the beginning, when you decided to do the CPA, like, where were you at in your career? What made you, make that decision?
So I've been working full time in my position for almost 5 years now, but my employer offers a bonus for being a licensed CPA.
Mm-hmm.
I just needed a few more credit hours and to pass the tests, and I'd have it done. I got my master's to meet the credit hour requirements, finished that in February of 23, and then jumped straight into studying for the CPA test in April.
Okay.
Yeah, I was using Wiley because that's what my master's program gave us to use. And I started the normal way, watching all the videos, doing everything. And I was getting very burnt out and very discouraged quickly. I don't know with all the study materials how you do, but with Wiley, they have you put in how much are you going to work on this every day and every week to give you when they think you can take the test.
Mm-hmm.
And when they said I wouldn't be taking it till July, I was just bummed because I wanted it done.
Mm-hmm.
But started anyways.
What did you put into their planner thing at the time when it gave you that?
So I was doing 3 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and then like 6 hours every Saturday and Sunday.
And they were like,
And
that's not enough time.
3-month timeline.
I was hoping to be done by the end of 23 before all the tests change. And
Yeah.
it felt like they had ruined my plan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I remember that with Becker. Same thing.
Yeah. Yeah, their recommended timelines are, if you don't sign, if you don't put in like 5 or 6 hours a day, then yeah, it's really long.
Yeah.
So when you say you were getting really burnt out, what was causing that? The amount of time you were putting in, and also some aspect of, I'm guessing, feeling like it wasn't even working still, or what was causing that?
So it was about middle of June, and I was um, getting frustrated that I was putting all this time in. I was doing okay on the MCQs as I'd finished the exam or the lessons, but I was starting to think, I don't remember what I looked at in April, early May, and how in the world am I going to remember that for a test in July? And I was getting really worried that I was going to fail just because I didn't remember what I had done 3 months ago. Um, it was spending a lot of time watching those videos, which I think were helpful, but it was just so slow moving
Mhm.
that I didn't think I was going to retain it.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's just a lot of info in every video, and then the chapter, and it's hard to, I mean, day by day, if you're just constantly refilling your short-term memory with 2 or 3 new hours of material, it's,
Yeah.
especially in that form, it's very broad, like the videos,
Mhm.
where
Yeah.
funneling down to the questions is, what you need to know. Anyways,
Mhm.
so you did that for a few months. Did you ever take an exam when you just were using Wiley, or no?
No, no. So, but I was almost through the material in
Mhm.
mid-June when I saw a YouTube ad super fast. And once I took that free training session, I inputted those practices the next week. And all of a sudden it said I had like a week and a half left of material to get through. And I got through it in 2 days. It's like, holy
Yeah.
cow, that Paris has been.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In those 2 days, I mean, do you feel like it was it was making sense even to cover that
Yes.
much? Yeah, by going through the
Yeah.
questions first. I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Doing the questions first. So then all of a sudden I had 3 weeks before my exam to just hammer back through. And I did my full review then with the super fast materials.
Okay. And did you pass that first
I
section?
did. Yes. I did with an 82. That was far.
Oh, that's
Um,
awesome.
I was kind of nervous coming out of it, whether I had done it or not. But
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, it. I really think having that much time to review was nice. 2 months of slowly going through material,
Mm-hmm.
but then having the reviewed materials to go back through quickly and refresh my memory on everything I had learned helped before that first exam.
So so you watched the webinar, and I kind of have two questions. So first, so you watched the webinar, and did you purchase all the materials, like the pro course and the study materials, or what did you purchase? And then after you purchased it, um, did you just completely change your study routine to mirror what we recommend in the Superfast CPA strategies?
I didn't do the pro course. I just did the study materials. But yes, I did completely transform my study process. I was studying at night because I work full time. I have 3 kids. And so it was after they went to bed that I was doing my studying and obviously pretty tired by that time
Same.
in the day.
Man.
So I started getting up at 4:30 a.m. to do it first thing in the morning, which was not easy at first, but I got used to it. And I enjoyed having my evenings back with my kids without worrying about studying that night. Um, so yeah, I completely changed everything, and I saw the benefits very quickly with that test being just a couple of weeks away.
Mhm.
And then I implemented that to the last 3 tests.
Yeah. So switching to the morning, even just that alone, irregardless of the strategies, I know what you're going to say, but that was that alone was just much easier to be productive. I'm guessing, right? And versus
Yes,
fighting yourself at night when you're already tired.
yes, so much more productive. And when you're done, everyone congratulates you on that such a hard task that you passed. But with doing it this way, it didn't feel as hard
Mhm.
Yeah.
as it was those first 2 months I had tried studying with only Wiley.
Okay.
And getting it done in the morning was a great start to the day.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
did you cut it down from 3 hours to 2 hours, or were you still studying 3 hours in the morning?
During so audit was the next test I took
Mhm.
that I completely just used Superfast on. And I had just done the 2 hours then, which that was actually during my busiest month as a family. We have all my 3 kids' birthdays in that month, our anniversaries in that month. It was a crazy time. And I was still trying to figure out exactly what worked for me. I ended up implementing about 2 or 3 weeks in to review the notes before going into the
Mhm.
MCQs, just so I had a um, snapshot of what I was getting myself into, and seeing how much practice I really needed before going through the questions.
Are you saying our
Um,
notes? You would read our notes all the way
yes,
through?
Okay.
your notes. Yes.
Did you say,
Or
sorry,
just the section.
did you
Go
say
ahead.
2 or 3 times? Oh, you would just read it before you went into the MCQs for that lesson.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Just so I knew what I was getting
Yep.
into with the questions.
Yep.
Because I still struggled going in blind.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely a mind game, but I liked to have a little bit of knowledge before going in
Yeah.
to the
I
questions.
I really liked reading the super fast review notes before going in because it gives you like, even if you don't really understand what you're reading in the review notes, because you haven't studied that material yet, still gives you an idea of like, okay, word or that equation, or like a really basic understanding of these seem to be the important things, so that's what I need to look for in these questions. Like, it just helps the questions first approach feel like a total like total confusion, because it can be confusing at first if you're diving into the questions without too much context. So I think
Yes.
I love that idea.
So I have a question going back to your just the comparison. So you were saying that once you saw our free training, what you had planned for the next 2 weeks, you got done in 2 days. So what were the actual differences? Like, how would you sit down and study before that? And then after watching that, what were the changes that let you get through that much more material in such a drastically different time frame?
So with just doing Wiley, I was watching every lecture, and I like taking notes. So I took handwritten notes about everything in the lecture, every minute detail that I really didn't need to be taking notes on. And then I would take the questions. And if I felt like I did really bad on that quiz, I'd go back and watch the video again or read the notes that it had with the video, trying to figure out where I went wrong. Um, so those I would only get through 2 or 3 lessons in a day. Um, but when I switched to doing the questions first, I'd read the review notes, which super fast notes are much condensed compared
Mhm.
to Wiley. I'd get the key points and I'd go straight into taking questions. And then when I would do the questions, if I got it wrong or didn't understand what the question was asking, I'd read the description at the bottom and take notes on that. So for FAR, I have these notebooks. I filled a whole notebook for FAR.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but yet this is all I used for the last 3 exams. So it was just streamlining the process in every way.
Mhm.
How many notes I was taking, how much time I was spending on reading notes, and then just taking the quizzes.
Yeah. And I guess so to add on to that, so clearly, so the question is what specific ideas from the free training do you remember that like made a lot of sense? So clearly one of them is, the questions first thing. Did we mention that on the training? Like, you don't want to take notes your first time through necessarily because it will all seem new. And like, you obviously quit
I
doing
don't
that.
remember. I did quit, didn't I? Because it was just a time taking. I don't remember if that was from the training or not,
Yeah.
or just something I started when I started doing questions first. There wasn't anything to take notes on. You
Yeah. Okay.
do questions first.
Okay. Yeah. And you just felt like, I mean, we already kind of talked about this, but you could just feel like even in those first few days that it was working better, not even that it was faster, but that it was actually allowing you to understand the questions kind of right off the bat without watching the videos.
Yes. And I had also just come in from finishing my master's. So a lot of the material was somewhat in my brain,
Mhm.
just needed pulled out. So combining that with the questions and the review notes that were available in the CPA app, the Superfast app, it was just so much more efficient and it was pulling out what I needed to know much quicker.
Yep, that's awesome.
So, you took almost months for FAR, kind of doing from April to July, right? So once you got past FAR, how did the other 3 exams go, like, as far as timelines? Like, was it just way shorter? You did it in, like, a few weeks or something like that? Or, yeah, what was that like?
I took 5 weeks for audit and then 4 weeks for reg and BC.
Nice.
I realized I was getting, in an hour and a half in the morning, I was getting 8 hours of what Wiley said would be done.
Nice.
So I just used that and condensed it as close as I could because I wanted to be done by the end of 2023, and like, we're making this happen. And doing it that way left me no room to sleep in. Just, I know I've got to get this done because I've got this scheduled, and I'll be done. It'll be over.
Yeah. That's I don't know. I really have liked that idea from the beginning. Just putting pressure on yourself with setting exam dates, and viewing it as immovable. Like the more people I've talked to over the years, I don't know, that gives some people, that's like this mental obstacle that they really have a hard time dealing with. It's easier for them to. So that's, I don't know, part of it is I've had to admit that, okay, every literal way that I did it may not be the absolute way to do it. And for years, that's kind of how I thought, like, no, just do it how I did it. I mean, exactly. Don't take days off, put pressure on yourself. But yeah, I've had to kind of realize that's not the best for everyone, but it sounded like it worked for you. So how did you come up with those timelines after spending 3 months on FAR the first time? How did you come up with timelines of 5 and 4 weeks?
So I used the Wiley calculator, and I just, whatever they said, 8 hours, I started putting in that I was working 8 hours a day instead of an hour and a half in the morning. And on the weekends, I was doing quite a bit on the weekends because I was giving myself such a short timeline, and really cramming. And I wanted to leave 4 days of prep work before each time. So I just used 8 hours for Monday through Friday, and I think I put like 12 or 13 for Saturdays and Sundays, and see what it gave me, because I knew I could get through the material that quickly with super fast notes.
So with you, throughout the week, were you only doing multiple choice questions during your 2-hour session? And then I have another question after that.
Yes, only the MCQs. I didn't touch Sims until prepping for the exam at the end.
And that was going to be my next question. So, like, throughout the week you do MCQs, and you just said you didn't do Sims really till the end. So what were you doing on the weekends? Just doing even more MCQs? Is that what you were mainly focusing on?
Yeah, just continuing through like the lesson plan.
Okay.
And getting through the material.
And then what was your strategy with the Sims at the end? So, you said you tried to leave about 4 days to kind of have like a big final review. Was that the only time you looked at Sims, or was it a little bit before that?
That was the only time I looked at Sims. I did both of the practice exams and Wiley for each test, and I did the Sims that were in those exams.
Okay.
Because I liked how it kind of gave you a heads up on what the format's going to be for those Sims. I mean, I really feel like it's not much different from multiple choice questions, but seeing the format was helpful for me. But I didn't think it was something I needed to extensively study for weeks on end.
Yep.
It's pretty time consuming.
Yeah. And so you must have said that, but that's what I was going to ask. With a 5-week timeline or a 4-week timeline, what was your final review? So you would leave 4 or 5 days for that?
Yes. And I would just hammer the MCQs every day. I was listening to the audio notes every time I was in my car. My kids probably know quite a bit of the CPA at this point.
That's funny.
At one point for the last exam, my oldest, who's 10, was reading me the MCQ questions from the back of the car. So she got to learn words like depreciation and consolidation.
That is funny, but that's also just removing all excuses. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm going to do what this takes. Yeah. Just, that's really, a good idea, or just, something that makes sense. Like, here, you can read, you're 12, read me these questions.
Yes. And they wanted me to be done as much as I wanted to be done. So they were happy to help.
Yeah. So yeah, about that. So on the weekends, maybe you said this as well. What were you shooting for in terms of actual hours? Were you studying like 3 or 4 hours on the weekends?
Generally 3 or 4, and those generally were in the evenings. Just doing whatever. I mean, my kids play sports, and
Mhm.
weekends are actually crazier than the weekdays in our
Mhm.
household most of the time. So I would squeeze in a couple hours, 3, 4 hours in the evening then, but just going through more material, more NCQs, more lessons, getting
So,
through it.
so I was going to ask how you made that work with like 3 kids that are in sports on the weekends. You would just wait till the evening when games were over. So the weekends you would study again in the evenings.
Yeah, pretty much after dinner, my husband would, the 3 kids, somewhat quiet, generally watch a movie or something with them. I went off to study, and then they were usually in bed before I'd be done for the night. But it's like, it's just a few months. We can do this.
Mhm.
I love that that kind of like became like a family thing. I do think that that is something that people do forget to do. They kind of look at it as totally alone, which maybe nobody else really understands the CPA around you, but you can still have you can still talk with them about it and be like, "Hey, I need your help to make this happen," or whatever, kind of like making it a group effort, even though you're the one going for it. I think that's a great, I mean, you embodied that. I think it's a great thing to remind people that you don't have to be totally alone going through this, even though you may be the only one that is actually doing the CPA
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah, and a few people have mentioned some version of that, like having their significant other read them. Usually, they mention flashcards, like when they're
Mhm.
watching TV at night, handing their flashcards over to their, you know, girlfriend or wife or husband, and having them quiz them on their own flashcards. And so that is something anyone can do. Because we get asked that a lot, like how do you find time to do the mini sessions? And there's general suggestions like, well, you can create these opportunities throughout the day. It's pretty normal to leave your desk every hour or two when you're at work. You could take a few quizzes while you walk to the break room or whatever. But yeah, it's, obviously the main idea is you just find ways to make it happen. So, so on that note, you mentioned using the audios. You would, whenever you're in your car, you would have your kids read you MCQ questions. You would use the review notes before you jumped into your main study session or the questions for a
Mhm.
topic. Any other ways that you were using the study tools from the app a lot throughout the day?
Those were the main ways. The audio notes really were huge for me. Um, if I was having, if I was going on a walk or something like that, the audio notes were playing. While I was in the shower in the morning, the audio notes are playing. Just anytime
Yes.
where there's somewhat quiet, let's fill it with this material.
And then if you can, what specific, well, contextualize this. So that's also what I tell people is like, okay, with the audios, because it seems like some people think that they need to almost sit there and just be able to like listen intently just to that. And what I say is like, no, basically have those on whenever you can, even if you pick up hypothetically 10 seconds out of every minute or two. If you're just constantly having them play, this stuff just kind of comes in layers to your mind. So anyways, so if you can, how did you see the specific, or what specific benefits of listening to the audio so much do you think, or how would you describe the benefits you got from that?
I remember specifically I don't remember what the topic was now, but there was a topic I was kind of struggling with it in the MCQs, and I planned on making a flashcard for it because it was driving me nuts. And then all of a sudden in the car, the audio notes play, and it just clicked. That was probably the sixth or seventh time I'd
Mhm.
listened to it, but all of a sudden, I think just from the repeat exposure to it over and over and over, it finally just clicked. And if I hadn't been doing that, I may have still struggled with that on exam day.
Yep.
But some of the lessons that got to where I could name off what you were going to say next, of listening to it so much, but that meant I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew what I was studying for.
Yeah, that's kind of the perfect example. And That's kind of what I would say, is hearing something so many times. A really good parallel for these CPA exams is like learning a new language. There is no other way of doing it besides just kind of immersion and hearing the same things over and over and over until it starts to really set in. That's really the only way you can learn something as complicated as a new language. And I think the CPA exams are just a really close parallel to that. You can go really deep, watch the whole video, spend 6 or 7 hours on one lesson, like Wiley might recommend. But like you said, you're going to do that again for 100 different topics over the next 6 weeks. And you cannot just see that stuff one time or even 2 or 3 times. So this idea of re-review, constantly re-hitting things, it makes sense when you say it out loud, but most people don't approach this process that way. But yeah, it makes sense why it works so much better. Let's see. So talked about your weekends, how you do the sims. You showed us your notebook. Was that your primary way of taking notes, or did you do any flashcards as well, or was it just notes in your notebook?
That was my primary way. In my study session a couple days before the exams, I would make flashcards on the couple topics that still were not 100% for me. And so there'd only be like 4 or 5 flash at that point. But that's what I would take with me on exam day to review one last time before I walked into that building. But yeah, my notes in my notebook were my primary note taking.
So the flashcards for you, because, we typically say like, throughout the process you're making them, but for you, it was almost more like the flashcards were at the very end, just the condensed, like all the way down to these are the last few things that I still don't understand. Is that kind of what you're saying there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's
just put it in my head one more time before I walk in.
Yep.
And so with your notes, again, your first couple months, you said you were taking notes on everything. After you switched to our approach, basically, when would you take notes, and then when would you review your notes, if at all?
So I would only take notes after taking the questions if it still just didn't quite make sense.
Mm-hmm.
If I got the answer wrong and it was like, oh, well, I get that, I wasn't going to take a note on it. If I got it wrong and it was still just kind of tough, I'd write it down just to help me process it a little more. And I would review those in my last couple of days because it's only 10 to 15 pages of notes. That this was the stuff that gave me a little bit of trouble. Let's go through it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And were you might have mentioned this, but you were doing an hour and a half of new material, and were you doing the 30 minutes of review every day as well?
During the first week of each exam, no, because I was going through the material. I didn't feel like there was much to cumulatively review at that point.
Yeah.
But then after that, yes.
Okay.
To keep it all fresh.
And did you see, how did that feel? Because, at the beginning you were thinking, oh man, how on earth am I going to remember what I did in April? What benefit or how quickly did you see oh, this is really helpful when you started doing the cumulative review every day?
When I started doing it for audit, I could see it just was reassuring to see that I still knew that stuff. When that was my concern with FAR, and those first couple of days that I was re-reviewing before the FAR exam, kind of scary at first.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm going to remember all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it sounds to me like, if I'm not wrong, you passed all of them first try. Is that right? Okay.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Very good. Yeah, that's awesome. On test day, did you find the MCQs relatively simple, or meaning, did you get through them fairly easily after all this MCQ practice day to day, to where they kind of took care of themselves as far as time wise?
Yes, I had no trouble with time. I was generally walking out after 2.5 or 3 hours. So yeah, when you practice them that much, they're just
it becomes like we've said this a million times, but you can get so good at not even just the material, but just multiple choice questions. Like it is a skill to be able to get a question, read it, and kind of quickly pick out what are they really asking, and then being able to, even sometimes you don't even have to know about accounting. You can just, or I guess don't have to know very much, as long as you can kind of deduct like, that one doesn't make sense and this one doesn't make sense. It just makes your accounting knowledge that much easier to apply. Anyway, it is like a skill to just be able to mow through multiple choice questions, but still getting them right. So did that leave you a ton of time for the Sims on test day, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yeah, and some of those took a little longer than I
Mhm.
would have liked, but I had the time, so
Yeah.
no problem. I think
How
BC written were the hardest.
yeah, those ones were, it was so, I did not like the written ones. They definitely made me feel like I don't know, I'm just kind of writing stuff. I hope it's right. Um, about how much time would you say that you had for Sims each test roughly?
Um, I probably had 2 to 2.5 hours. I think I was doing about 30 minutes per booklet.
Okay.
Yeah, because if you were having a full hour left or more with each exam, then yeah, you were going fast. That's another thing to point out about just learning how to answer questions strategically, because you mentioned in your first few months, your approach was, and this is what everyone does, I think, I'm pretty sure. They would watch the video, look at the chapter, take the questions, and if the questions didn't go well, instead of kind of strategically reverse engineering the questions, they just assume, well, I guess I didn't understand the video well enough, so they go back to the video, which the context is so different, it doesn't really connect,
Yeah.
and that's so, yeah, that just kind of keeps you in the same cycle. Whereas that shift of this is about the questions, learning how they work. And like Logan said, there's a lot of nuances to just answering questions in general, little strategic things that just become clear as you answer so many questions. So,
And that's something that has stuck with me from your free training was what you're doing on exam day.
yeah.
And so just practicing those over and over and over makes exam day feel like not as big of a deal. It's still stressful,
Yeah.
but not as bad.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, so when did you finish? When was your last exam, and when did you get your score on your fourth one?
I took my last exam October 30th and I got it mid-November.
Oh, so you did them. Yeah, once
Like,
you
I
passed
did
FAR,
July,
you
August,
quit.
September, October.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very cool.
And
Yeah. I
that's
wanted
really
to leave
fast.
room in case I failed one.
Yeah, for sure. You left yourself enough time that you could have even taken 2 exams.
Retaken one if necessary.
Retaken,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean that if you think about that timeline, if you kind of like, if you started in April, you ended in October, but those first 2 months were kind of
Yeah.
just wishy-washy, kind of difficult. You really were only doing it for like 4 or 5 months or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing for somebody who's working, has a family. Like, it's just it just shows that no matter who you are, whether you're extremely busy or not, which most people are quite busy, you can do this. And so, that's awesome. And did you feel like that? Like, were you just elated, like amazed at how well it was going?
Yeah. I definitely looked at the statistics on passing all 4 the first time afterwards.
It's like 10% or
like,
something
oh,
like that.
yeah.
It's like very high. I think it's
Very
like,
low.
I looked at it as well because I was able to do that, and I think it's like, it's the pass rate is roughly 50% total, like overall, somewhere around there.
Mhm.
And of that 50%, only about 10% of those people passed all of them first try. So it's like very small amount of people, like 5%
Yeah.
of people,
It
basically.
makes you feel really good when you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is awesome. Let's see. So, as long as you kind of nailed it in the morning and you were doing the, mini sessions, meaning using the study tools throughout the rest of your day, and you kind of mentioned this, but you had the evenings to, be mom at home, like do your normal thing.
Yes. Yeah. And I even, I like to play video games.
Okay.
But I even got to play video games a little bit some nights. I mean, not a ton, but I'm a mom. I don't get a ton of time to do that
Yeah.
anyways. But it's like, holy cow, I can't believe I'm doing this while studying for CPA. I never thought I'd have that kind of time.
You're
really
able to have
cool.
hobbies. What games do you
I was
typically
just
play?
gonna say that.
Yeah.
Well, I had bought Hogwarts Legacy when I finished my
I've heard that's a
master's
good one.
last year, so I was playing that a lot through the CPA exam, and my husband and I play Call of Duty together.
That is so
Nice.
funny. I had a major Call of Duty fit. Like the CPA exams for me killed my video game career. I don't know. I never went back to playing games much. Like just now recently my kids play Mario, so all the Mario games on the Switch I play, like when they want me to, but I keep telling myself I'm going to like get back into cuz I really liked it. I played Call of Duty
Yeah,
so much. I don't even know what years this would have been, but like Modern Warfare 2, I don't know how far back you
Mhm.
played, but like when it was big. Anyway,
yeah.
yeah, that's really cool. You were doing all that and playing video games at night. That is funny.
Yeah.
So what did you have to I'm guessing to get up at 4:30 you had to just cut yourself off at a certain time? Like the big thing was what time you
Yeah.
went to bed?
Yeah, I was in bed by 9.
How early could you get your
I
kids
don't
to bed?
survive on like 8.
So you'd get an hour to like
I got an hour to myself to
Yeah.
unwind, and
yes.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I think you kind of mentioned this multiple times, but so after switching to this, you would just study in the morning, again, use the study tools throughout the day. But this didn't have to be a big all-consuming nightmare. I mean, it was relatively smooth and not easy, but relatively simple once you got this process down.
yeah. Once I had my process, especially those last 2 exams, I was confident in what I was doing at that point, and the stress level went way down to get those exams done.
Yeah.
I do have I actually just had a thought. So what do you work in? Like, do you work in public accounting and industry? Like, what do you do for your job?
I work in state government.
Okay. So was there any exam? I mean, you did them all pretty quick, but was there any exam that a little bit more challenging? Like you were kind of like, ooh, this is more difficult than these other exams. Was there anything like that for you?
I was going
And I
to
was
say,
kind of embarrassed to say, because I used to work in internal audit, which isn't exactly the same, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of same principles, and it's like, oh boy, why is this so hard?
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Yeah, so far was, you did it like 90% the traditional way, but then audit. So audit was audit kind of the big confirmation that, okay, this process really works. I'm done with 2 now. And that's why you just did B, C, and Reg in 4 weeks each.
Yes, I did have a little bit. I had a 75 on audit, so it kind of messed with my head
Yeah.
for a couple days of, ooh, what do I need to ramp this up a little bit? So I did start studying a little more after finding out that I cut it close, but I knew my process was working. I just
Mhm.
felt like I wanted to spend a little more time on it.
I had the same feeling. I got a 75 on BEC, and I was like, I wasn't actually happy at that. Like when I first saw it,
Yeah.
like afterwards, I was like, okay. But at the moment, I was like I was just shocked. I was like, maybe I kept telling my wife, like, will you go check that again? Like they're not gonna. I even took a screenshot to make sure that they like wouldn't change it or something. Like I was just so
It
worried
was a
about it.
path.
Yeah. But yeah, afterwards I was like, okay, no, it's all good. But yeah, I remember that feeling too.
Yeah, I got a 75 on, I can't remember which one.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, we kind of have gone through everything, and we have been asking people about, was there a hobby that you made sure to keep doing, but you mentioned that with the video games. That's funny. But it's also cool because that's something you and your husband do together, right? That's what you
Mhm.
said.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were able to keep like familial relationships and ties like still close. Like it didn't feel like you were just gone for those like 5 months or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. On the weekends, they would definitely get a little frustrated with me for closing myself off after dinner, but they understood,
Yeah.
what's at stake here and that it's a short amount of time.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you know that it's working and you're like, listen, this seriously, I have this down to a science. 7 more weeks and I'm all done with this.
Mhm.
Whereas
Yeah.
I've gotten some horror emails over the years where these exams have like wrecked relationships because the person's operating under the assumption that if they're not at work, they've got to be locked in the office at home, like studying. And even then it wasn't working. So this has gone on for years, and just like, wow, I didn't even realize this causes so much destruction to some people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so on the other hand, it's really awesome that how you were able to do it. Study in the morning, use the study tools throughout the day. You still had time to, I mean, you didn't have to study at night to the point that you still could play video games. You mean, having 3 kids, that's just really cool.
It's impressive.
Yeah. So what would be your top 3 tips to people that are maybe in your first phase where they're doing too much and it's not even working? What would be your tips to them?
Stop watching every video. Go straight to the questions, because that's where you need to learn and that's where you need to practice. Do the cumulative review to keep it fresh in your mind, even if you're not trying to cram it into 4 weeks, which I'm not sure I completely advise trying to do it in 4 weeks. But do that cumulative review to keep it fresh. But also to keep your why in your mind. I had that bonus hanging over my head that I wanted to grab, and you got to know why you're going through it.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, yeah, I appreciate you doing the call, Brittany. That was awesome to hear your story. And I'm glad you found us through that YouTube ad and that it made such a difference. And congrats on being done.
Yeah, congrats.
Thank you so much.
All right.
I'm so glad to be done.
Yeah, I bet. Has it set in yet that you, like, it took me months to get used to not studying. Have you gotten past that finally?
I've gotten past the not studying. The fact that CPA is now in my work signature is surreal.
No, feels new. Yeah, that's cool.
All right, that was the interview with Brittany. It was awesome to see that she was able to have that major shift and go from feeling like she was going to take 4 or 5 months to study for each exam to being able to pass all of her exams in about 4 or 5 months once she started implementing the super fast CPA strategies. And I hope this can be a hopeful interview for you, because she was able to still have some hobbies, still able to spend time with her family, still able to work and not hate her life. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing. So if that's what you're missing in your life right now, make sure you check out our free 1-hour webinar training on superfastcpa.com. And also make sure you listen to more of the podcast episodes. That is the point of this podcast, is to give encouragement, to show good strategies, and to help people through the CPA exam process for free. This is the best free training resource out there for CPA exam candidates. So make sure you listen to some more and make sure you share it with your friends who are also going through the CPA exams. If you like this, make sure to leave a rating in your favorite podcast app or to like and leave a comment on the YouTube video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.